What's going on, everybody? I'm GemMint. Welcome back to the channel. This is one of those video ideas that I had in my notes for like a couple years now. I want to say my wife showed me a Laura Legends video, and it was like top 10 fandoms that I never got into. I kind of got that video in the chamber as well, but I really wanted to do my top 10 fandoms of all time, do an old school top 10 video, and it was kind of tough, man, especially with number 10. Before we get into it, though, make sure to like this video if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this, and hit that notification bell so you're notified when videos come out. So the number 10 of my top 10 fandoms of all time, I'm going to give it to Power Rangers. And I got into Power Rangers when it first came out, old school, season 1, and literally followed it every day after school when it would come on. The Green Ranger saga, becoming the White Ranger, getting new Zords. And although I dropped off from the TV series when they got into the later seasons, I was still a big fan of the franchise, the movie, the toys. Forget about it. That was one of those Christmases where that toy was sold out everywhere. I don't think I ever owned those old school Power Ranger toys. But I loved the fact that they were a team and they would have their own Zords, which were dinosaurs that would combine into the Megazord. And what's funny is Voltron is not on this list. It's on the other video that I'm going to make, so that's going to be interesting when we talk about Voltron. But Power Rangers, I just hit it at the right time. It came out when I was at the right age. Me, all my friends, we were into it. The helmets were cool. The Zords were cool. The karate, the hip 90s stuff. Power Rangers, number 10. Moving on to number 9, I got to give it to Masters of the Universe. I'm going to say this is the first fandom that I ever got into, that I remember watching the cartoon as a kid and collecting those toys. And I want to really say that those toys is what gave me the collector's bug to begin with. When I was a kid during Christmas, my parents hit me with the old, oh, this is a designer t-shirt from Bird Eyes or whatever, but it was really He-Man action figures stacked up on each other, like 4 of them in a box. And when I would flip that box over and see all the other characters in the line, that's when the collector in me was born, and I'm like, I gotta get all these. I gotta get the whole entire line, and that would continue through most of these fandoms as we get through this list. What's crazy is, so that's my earliest fandom. Number 8, I think, is the most recent fandom that I've gotten into, and it's Berserk. It's the only one on this list that is a manga and was adapted to an anime, but I love, where do I even start? The story, the stakes, the worst of the worst can happen to you in the world of Berserk, and they also do godlike things towards the end of that series as well. The art is incredible. It gets better as it goes on. The Berserker armor, the lore, the characters, and then of course the statues. A big reason why I wanted to get into the manga and read it to begin with. Love that original anime and Berserk. Just love that whole world. My number 7, top 10 fandoms of all time, I gotta give it to Street Fighter. I was a huge arcade kid back in the 90s, and I used to play Street Fighter 2 religiously. I was also super heavy into it for the Super Nintendo. My friends and I, we would all play it, and I would follow Street Fighter throughout the years. Love the characters. The story, not so much. It was just kind of like random fighters from different countries. The World Warriors, which was the OG Street Fighter 2, following all the different iterations of Street Fighter 2, and then to 3, and to Alpha, 4, 5, and now 6 is out. So, love the characters, and really just one of my fondest video game memories. Number 6 on the list is another early one. I want to say this came right after Masters of the Universe. It's the Transformers. This was another one where it was like a cartoon toy combo, but this one I did collect those toys as a kid, man. But yeah, the cartoon, it always came on super early. The original movie still holds up to this day, and they're still making new Transformers movies. Just got done seeing Transformers Rise of the Beast. Beast Wars was another show that I was really into as a kid, but Transformers, I love the characters. I love the transformation. I mean, it's Transformers. Who didn't love them? All right, on to number 5. I had to make a decision here. I couldn't just say comic book characters because that's just too broad, but I didn't want to say specific characters because then that would get to be where this whole list was just my top 10 favorite characters. Number 5 on the list, I'm going to say DC Comics. DC is important to me because it's really the first story in comics that I read, like a complete story, and it was the death of Superman, and would eventually read the return of Superman. But picked that up in a trade paperback, going into a comic shop for the first time as a kid, and realizing, oh man, all the issues aren't going to be here. You're going to have to hunt the issues down, and key issues are expensive. So I learned about trade paperbacks really early on, and then Superman vs. Doomsday, one of my earliest comic book reading experiences, and then of course Batman, Justice League, the animated series, the movies, DC Comics, on my list at number 5. Now, number 4 is kind of an exception. I didn't want to say Image Comics because that's way too broad, especially you have 90s Image and then you have current modern Image, you got Walking Dead, but I went with Spawn because when I went into that comic shop early on as a kid, the trading cards that I was collecting brought me in there, but the comic books on the shelves that stood out to me were the Spawn comics, man, the covers. And I want to say that was the first series that I really was picking up issue by issue and reading along with it, having got caught up in trades and then picking up around issue 50 or so, I want to say. But Spawn, man, Todd McFarlane, the GOAT, the artwork incredible. I like big heaven and hell storytelling. I like the Spawn character design and all the crazy powers. And I really loved the beginning of Spawn, the whole losing his wife, going to hell, coming back, but she's remarried. It was kind of like a Robert Kirkman-y thing to do before Robert Kirkman did it, man. Spawn, one of my favorite characters and one of my favorite fandoms. And when you see number 3, it starts to make sense because I got to give it to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I didn't even get into TMNT as a comic book reader. I got into it like a lot of you guys did with the cartoon in the late 80s, early 90s. And what's crazy about Turtles is that I love many different iterations of the Turtles. I love the original Mirage comics. I love the original Turtles. I love the first 2 live-action movies, and I love the IDW current ongoing series. And that's kind of rare to see because sometimes when they change the thing that you love from the way you originally found it, it's kind of hard to like those other versions. But I dig so many versions of the Turtles. I still collect Turtle stuff to this day. All right, this one was kind of hard on where I was going to place it. Obviously, it was almost number 1. Number 2 of my top 10 favorite fandoms, I got to give it to Mortal Kombat. This is another one that I got into it right when it came out. I was playing Street Fighter 2 in the arcades at home with the Super Nintendo, and I remember showing up one day and having this Mortal Kombat game. It had this like eerie music. It had this whole mystique to the fighters. They were real people, digitized actors, not cartoon sprites. Immediately, I couldn't take Street Fighter serious because I'm like, okay, this is for grown-ups. This is adult stuff. And I'll never forget when Sub-Zero won, I'm thinking, okay, KO, round over, gonna pick new characters. The screen says finish him, the screen goes black, and Sub-Zero rips off the other character's head, blood squirting out, and its spine is dangling down. It blew my mind. Right away, I'm like, in Street Fighter, you get a KO, you knock them out, and that's it. But in this game, you finish them. And I followed Mortal Kombat for every single game after that until now. I mean, I lived through the PS2 3D era, loved MK9 when it came out and rebooted the series in 2011, and now we're getting that again coming this year with MK1. All right, guys, before we get into my number 1 favorite fandom of all time, first of all, I want to thank you for sticking around this far, and I want to thank the sponsor of this video. If you guys are into exclusive variant comic books, you got to check out THATSPIDERMANBOOTH.com. They have a monthly subscription box that gives you 5 comics each month, $100 worth of retail value for just $50. But in addition, you also get a variant that's exclusive to this box. And for July, we have an Essentia issue 18, an Alex Regal Akira homage, limited to just 600 copies. Head on over to THATSPIDERMANBOOTH.com so you can check out their subscription box today. All right, enough with the suspense. My number 1 fandom of all time, I got to give it to Marvel, y'all. Marvel Comics, because really Spider-Man and X-Men and their corresponding villains. The Marvel trading cards is really what got me hooked as a kid. The 1992 Marvel Masterpieces by Joe Jusko, the artwork, which was realistic, made these characters feel iconic and larger than life. And when you flip those cards around, it would tell you their first appearance or first cover appearance, which made me go into the comic shop to try to find these issues. That's when I found out key issues were expensive and ended up picking up those trades. Death of Superman, Maximum Carnage, Spawn, and then boom, the obsession began. Everything from the video games to the action figures to the comic books to the movies to the MCU, Marvel Comics, regardless if they have more misses than hits lately, always going to have that place in my heart as my favorite fandom. Man, I knew this was going to be a fun video to do, to talk about my favorite ones. Let me know what your favorites are in the comments down below. Appreciate you watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.